Hello, ceramic students. We are going to finish the design on our plate. So now it's time for the big reveal. My plate is dry enough. It is still leather hard, so if I want to make adjustments by adding more underglaze, I can. But it is also not so wet that I'm going to smear my designs. And hopefully I'll get a nice clean pattern like this plate or this plate right here. So let's start peeling off the paper. And one of the pieces of paper is really hard to get off. So what I'm going to do is take my needle tool and kind of draw along the edge of the paper. And the paper is really easy to see because it dries a slightly different color. And then it came off really nicely. I just used my needle tool to kind of pick it up. And I'm just using my hand to kind of brush off any little crumbs of underglaze or clay, but I don't want to press so much that I tear up the design. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing on this heart in the center. Because it has so many layers on it, it's going to be very hard to peel off. So I'm actually taking my needle tool and drawing along the edge of the paper that I can still see. So it's kind of breaking the seal. Okay, so my design came out pretty nicely. There's a few areas, if you can see that you can see like purple where there's supposed to be blue, or you see a little bit of black where there's supposed to be purple. So what I'm going to do to fix that is I'm going to find the really tiny loop tool. So you have a loop tool like this in your kit, and then I passed out to each one of you a very tiny loop tool with a bright colored handle. These kind of loop tools right here, that's what you want to use for this part of the project. All right, and you can also use your needle tool as needed. Just don't overly rely on your needle tool because it's actually going to create like scratches in the clay, and you really want to keep it as smooth as possible. So I'm taking one of those loop tools and I'm just carving away the colored slip where I see a color I don't want. So inside the white heart, there was a little bit of purple that showed. It obviously got under the paper that I used to mask that area. So I'm just taking my loop tool and very carefully and methodically carving away the purple underglaze or slip. And I want to be careful when I do this, because if I gouge the clay or if I carve too deep, that's going to show up. So even though the clay is going to undergo this magical transformation and turn from dirt to ceramic material, it's not going to magically fix any mistakes. So I want to make sure that this looks exactly how I want it to look, because it's going to look the same. The only thing that's going to look different is that this grayish color is going to turn white. You can see those wrinkles in the black. So I'm actually going to carve that down some, and then I'm going to have to take the underglaze and repaint those areas. But that's okay, as long as I fix it. It's not a huge deal. I also have the issue that on several of these shapes, some black got where I wanted it to be purple. And since black is such a dark color, I'm actually going to have to shave away the black with my loop tool. and then go back over it with purple or black to clean it up. So like right there, I'm carving it all the way down to the white clay, and then I'm gonna have to paint that purple again. Then on this one, I'm actually carving a little bit into the black. So I'm probably gonna have to touch up the purple first, then touch up the black as well. And so all that kind of stuff happens. Don't freak out if it does happen, but don't leave it that way. Make sure that you fix it. So this last step might take you an entire class period or 90 minutes, and that's okay. That's kind of expected. So I guess what I'm saying is don't expect just to be able to peel off the paper and be done. There's a lot of work that goes into cleaning up your design afterwards. And as much as possible, I'm trying to blow away the little crumbs, because when I use my hand, if I'm not careful, I am probably like drawing on the black, and so it's making little white smudges, and sometimes those will come off after it's fired and I wipe it, but sometimes they stay. So just to be on the safe side, I'm trying to avoid making them. And I have a few spots where like the underglaze obviously was getting a little bit old, so there's a little chunk here or there. And so I'm also shaving those down, because since I'm gonna have to touch up the black anyways, I might as well touch up those areas as well. I missed the edge of the plate and I didn't paint it black, or there was so much black that it kind of dripped. And so I'm also gonna need to clean that up. But right now my plate is so stiff that I can actually just kind of pick it up and treat it like I would pottery. And you see all of this right here. It's far away from the camera, so I don't know if you can see it super well, but you see how the black kind of dripped over the edge, and then I've got like purple underglaze that kind of obviously like flaked off and got on it. So I need to clean all that up. So I'm gonna take my time and just really spend some time cleaning that up. And for this, I will start with the smaller needle tool, or sorry, not needle tool, loop tool. But then for bigger areas, I might as well use that big loop tool. All right, now another thing that might seem like common sense to some of you, but not to everyone, is everywhere that I'm shaving off this underglaze, I want to be mindful of those little shaved off pieces, because since those shaved off pieces have underglaze or colored slip applied to them, they, just like normal clay, if I let them dry and I'm kind of messy and just like leave them in my tools or on my workspace, all that's going to get into my plate if I'm not careful, and definitely get into my next project. And then I'll have just like random little streaks of color because I'll be smoothing my project and not know that it's there. So I want to be mindful of that and definitely clean up all this mess before I keep working. So I'm just going to get all of that off of my workspace. And if you follow directions, like I said, you're not working on a wear board, you're working on a table, so it'll be a lot easier to clean. But I'm actually going to pause the video right here and clean it with a sponge. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is decorating your plate after you've got your design pretty much complete. So I've spent a lot of time cleaning up all of my edges, and so I've got nice crisp colors, but I've got a few areas that just seem to have too much negative space on the plate. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take my loop tool and I'm going to carve some circles into the surface of my plate. And the nice thing is, the longer I've been working with this plate, the faster things are going to dry. So I actually only stopped painting a few minutes ago. And in this area, the plate is already leather hard. A few days ago, it would be 30 minutes to an hour before I could do anything. So I'm just kind of using my eye and kind of like my artistic intuition to figure out what areas of the plate don't have enough design. I'm just adding some little circles by twisting my little loop tool. And I'm just carving away all the way back down to the white plate. So I'll have some little white polka dots. And my plan here is I'm putting crumbs all over my plate. And since I did stop painting just a few minutes ago, I'm going to wait. And in about 30 minutes, I'm going to take a clean, dry paintbrush and I'm going to wipe away all these crumbs. And so right now I'm just kind of leaving them, but I'll definitely clean that up before I put it in the kiln. All right, this probably would be a little bit better if I had planned out my design a little bit more intently, but I think that is a good solution to my problem of having too much negative space. All right, the last thing I'm going to do is show you how to add dots to your piece, and that's a pretty easy way to kind of make something pop that looks a little bit too plain. So what I'm going to do is actually dip the end of my paintbrush in my underglaze, and then I'm just going to add dots around this heart just to give it a little bit more visual interest. And so I'm just like barely dabbing the surface of the plate, and I can do it about 2 or 3 times before I have to load back up. And the nice thing about doing a repetitive pattern like dots is just a second ago, and I know it's so small that you can't see it on camera, but I actually put a little bit too much on the surface of the plate just for one dot. And I'm not even going to stress about that and try to like clean it up and wait for it to dry, because with a repetitive pattern, the same shape repeats so many times that most people are not going to notice if one dot is bigger, and because it's handmade, even if they do notice, they're not going to care. So if you have like just tiny imperfections like that, but you're repeating something over and over, then the human eye usually isn't even going to pick up on it. And then the people that are detail oriented enough to pick up on it will not care if they're shopping for a handmade item anyways. They might just find the little imperfections like that kind of charming. Now, if I like dripped a huge amount somewhere, then I would have to clean it up. But just a little dot being slightly bigger than the one next to it, I'm gonna leave that alone. All right, now that I have added dots, I am pretty happy with my design. So after I get off camera and this dries a little bit more, I'll clean it up slightly more, but I've got a nice little design there, and that is how you decorate the surface of your plate.